Min Heejin's disappearance after causing a storm with NewJeans management hasn't gone unnoticed by anyone. However, her recent moves have many fans wondering how exactly this could have been a part of the plan, as she finally spoke up after months of silence. It seems like the entire K-pop community has been discussing NewJeans and their concerning case, and the public opinion seems to have shifted towards blaming Min Heejin for everything that went wrong after NewJeans' emergency live on YouTube. At the time, the girls made it very obvious that they were struggling in the battle, and many seemed to turn on Min Heejin's way of doing things, as it looked like they were truly standing along despite all of her big words. While Min Heejin was once believed to be the mastermind behind all of NewJeans' success, it's becoming more and more apparent to many netizens that she isn't the competent figure she was making herself out to be. In fact, many have been shocked by the ways in which she has chosen to stay behind the scenes now that NewJeans need her the most. Over the past half year, things seem to have shifted from the battle between NewJeans and HYBE to the worrying dynamic between NewJeans and ADOR, as many believe the management of the group has been questionable at best. And curiously, it was right when this shift happened that Min Heejin seemed to disappear from the front lines, as fanboards all over the internet flooded with the question, where is Min Heejin? For more news following the dramatic case between Min Heejin, NewJeans, and HYBE, make sure to subscribe to the channel and don't forget to leave your own opinion down below. According to a now viral report, Min Heejin's retreat may have even been intentional and legally calculated. Since her dismissal as CEO of ADOR, she is now considered a third party in the case, and if she were to continue communicating directly with NewJeans, who are still under contract with ADOR, her actions could be seen as interference or worse, artist tampering. Eventually, that could potentially jeopardize her standing in the legal battle and put her at greater risk of litigation, despite how desperately fans wanted her to stand up for the girls like she had promised. But legal technicalities aside, nobody expected her to completely disappear from the narrative, as the members who were made to trust her with their careers suddenly had to take all the heat on their own. In fact, netizens started criticizing this strategy, as many believed it was entirely unfair that the girls had to take the emotional burden and media spotlight, all while trying to defend their mentor with little to no visible guidance. Much of the online consensus seemed to point to Min Heejin's ambition being the reason things went sideways, with many even discussing whether this was some sort of revenge plan against HYBE at the expense of NewJeans. And now that it's looking more and more like HYBE might be the ones to come out on top, not just in court but also in the eyes of public opinion, to the point that fans who had supported Min Heejin's cause to start with are starting to reconsider their stance. Even those trying to remain neutral have questioned the strategic silence. It's especially the contrast between her conference appearance earlier in the conflict and the way she's acting now that has many bystanders questioning if she actually knows what she's doing. Her last press conference regarding the situation truly lacked the impact of her original statements, and many felt the group was unprepared and uncomfortable with the way things were unfolding thanks to Min Heejin. However, while many are extremely critical of the way she has been handling things as the group's mentor, it's important to recognize that the image NewJeans has maintained since its debut is not just aesthetic, as it's a carefully curated persona built by Min Heejin herself. Unfortunately, while this created their unique brand persona, many have also pointed out how it has backfired when it comes to their legal troubles, as the group has typically been portrayed as delicate, pure, and reserved, with little space to deviate from those constraints. During their broadcast, any shift in their facial expression or tone of voice was instantly criticized by antis, and it became quite clear that their innocent personas wouldn't be what helps them win this case. While some see this as being her fault, some netizens have even defended her position, claiming that her own lawyers could be the reason she's not as involved now as she was before, as it's too late to change anything that happened in the past. One person wrote, "We probably haven't heard from her because for once she is listening to her lawyers. Nothing can be gained by MHJ being in the papers. She can do a lot behind the scenes." And despite the fact that it's very possible Min Heejin could have been meeting with the group behind the scenes at any point, it's still the public viewings that seem to matter most, as it looks like presentation is the most important thing in this fight. The speculations that Min Heejin allegedly abandoned NewJeans at the most critical point of their career are difficult to shake, and anytime the girls stand alone trying to show how strong they are, things only seem to become worse. However, according to one insider, despite her staying away from the case, she hasn't necessarily stopped trying to meddle with the proceedings, as a source said. They said, "Reports surfaced that Min was secretly meeting with external business figures and had even met with one of the NewJeans members a day before their National Assembly hearing appearance." Seeing the way things have unfolded, many netizens continue to wonder how exactly this could have been a part of the plan, as working from behind the scenes isn't doing anything good for the girls. When public scrutiny is on them, the most important thing should be to look united in front of the media, and that isn't the case at all. In fact, some netizens are speculating that the plan might even have been to let the girls take the blame for her wrongs from the very start, as one Redditor's theory read, "I just feel sometimes that we're falling into her trap, you know?" now? By making this about NewJeans versus ADOR, people forget the real reason why this started was the white-collar crimes she was committing. In fact, her disappearance has become so concerning that after months of silence and fans calling for her to clarify her stance, her legal team has been pushed to release a statement addressing everything that's been happening. It appears as if Min Heejin's own lawsuit involving HYBE has been the most pressing matter in her life lately, as her team's statement chose to clarify exactly why she continues to insist that she is innocent and why she hasn't been able to be there for NewJeans. The lawsuit revolves around whether or not her dismissal from ADOR violated the terms of her shareholder agreement with HYBE, and her team's statement came just after a key hearing that took place on April 17th as part of the lawsuit Min Heejin filed against HYBE. According to her team, the main reason she has stayed so silent is because of her argument that she was illegally terminated from ADOR and therefore prevented from actually being able to join the case as she wanted. When Min Heejin was dismissed from her position in August 2024, following a controversial board meeting, she claimed that it broke the legal shareholder agreement that protected her position. HYBE, on the other hand, says the agreement had already been terminated by that point, meaning her firing was completely legal, which some netizens are seeing as a very calculated move on their part, perhaps to make sure that she would be taken out of the picture early. HYBE argues that they had the right to cancel the agreement and did so properly through a written notice, and that once that was done, they had no further obligation to her. Not only that, but they also claim the decision to remove her came from ADOR's own board and not HYBE directly, especially as she expressed wanting to leave the company herself. However, her lawyers are continuing to argue that HYBE hasn't been able to prove any of it, and even accused the company of failing to provide a single piece of solid legal evidence to support any of the actions taken against Min Heejin. In simpler terms, it looks like Min Heejin's team believes it's HYBE's responsibility to show that their decision to end the agreement and firing her was legally valid, not the other way around. Her legal team also criticized HYBE's approach, saying that the company is pushing for their side to make the first step before providing actual evidence, which they claim is unfair and goes against the basic rules of civil lawsuits in Korea, saying, "They can't wait for us to reply before providing real evidence. They have to prove their case regardless." But despite Min Heejin seemingly being extremely busy with their own lawsuit, trying to prove that she should have never been let go in the first place, many still can't help but point out the fact that abandoning NewJeans was never legally demanded from her. And with the way the members keep bringing her up, many are speculating that it could be a call for help, as they're basically begging Min Heejin to return to their side like before. While HYBE seems to have orchestrated the perfect plan to keep Min Heejin out of the picture with the overlaying lawsuits, it hasn't stopped netizens from speculating that things would have never gotten this bad if Min Heejin hadn't made the girls so dependent on her in the first place. And if she truly is meddling behind the scenes, then her leaving the girls to fend for themselves in the eye of the public seems to be yet another questionable decision on her part, seeing as the case isn't going as expected.